yeah, I'll explain caffeine because this will, I think, marry it all together. So if you can imagine, like if you put, for the listeners, if you put two fists up next to each other, these neurons, like these fists are representing two neurons trying to speak to each other. So you can say neuron A is trying to speak to neuron B. And so they communicate two ways. One through electrical excitation, so neuron spikes, and then through a chemical language we call neurotransmitters. So so neuron A will send a message to neuron B, like contract your bicep. We're just going to simplify the brain to two neurons, just to scale it up in a second. But so let's say neuron A wants to tell neuron B to, contract your bicep. So it sends a message like acetylcholine, one of the neurotransmitters you've probably heard of, will float across the synaptic gap and then go into the receptor site on the next neurotransmitter. And so if it takes it in, then the message is received, contract your bicep. But that is obviously a massive oversimplification because we have 87 billion neurons in our brain, not two. But yeah, so caffeine, for example, everybody thinks like, oh, caffeine gives me energy, but that's not how it works at all. So, you drink coffee, and so caffeine enters your bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier. The real hero, the caffeine molecule, looks so similar to an endogenous chemical we make called adenosine. So adenosine regulates tiredness. As you're going about your day and you're thinking, your brain is releasing adenosine and it's starting to accumulate, and then you start to get tired. And so basically that's saying, I need to shut this brain down. So the way caffeine works is it comes in and it looks so similar to that adenosine molecule that it fits into the receptor site on neuron B and it blocks it. So now adenosine is trying to be sent from neuron A to neuron B, but because the caffeine molecule is sitting inside this neuron, it blocks it. It can't, so you don't feel tired anymore. And so what happens is the brain senses panic. It starts to release adrenaline, the fight or flight chemical. And the next thing you know, you start to feel more alert and wired. So increased neuron firing starts to happen because the brain is like, what the hell is happening? Like something's wrong, right? And so that's where caffeine, like, it's not giving you energy, it's tricking your body into releasing, adrenaline in the body and noradrenaline in the brain. So that's how caffeine works in a nutshell. But yeah.
So it's a similar process then with all things. So basically, yeah, there's particular compounds being transmitted that are ultimately tricking endogenous things in our body, or the production of other endogenous things that it's tied to, whether it's just a misrepresentation of something or it mimics it, it looks like it, and it's basically eliciting a natural response. Because we don't have caffeine in our body. It's not an endogenous thing, but caffeine itself, when it enters the body, is able to produce a stimulant-like effect because of the process that you were just speaking of.
Exactly. And so to scale that up when it comes to other drugs, like we'll just take endorphins, for example. You've heard about endorphins. You work out, you get endorphins. You go for a run, you get runner's high. Now, runner's high is underpinned mostly by anandamide, which is another endogenous chemical neurotransmitter that we make. But so let's see, how do we explain that one? So morphine, the only reason morphine or opium or heroin or any of those opiates work is because we already have a receptor site that looks like, opium or whatever. So it fits into the endorphin site. So endorphins, actually, we discovered morphine before endorphins. So that's why it's endogenous morphine, endorphins. That's the word. Yeah. So, and then, so like marijuana, for example, tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. How do we have cannabinoid receptors in our brain? Everybody's wondering. We have an endocannabinoid system. Well, anandamide, which is the runner's high chemical, it's only because of that. So when you smoke marijuana or something like that, the THC is basically getting into it's going the anandamide channel, basically. So it's so similar to anandamide. That's what you're feeling. It's hijacking that system. So it's like this lock and key situation is what I'm getting at.
So how does that all tie in then ultimately with consciousness and the overall, message of the book? Tie that in really quick.
Sure. So the way this all ties in with consciousness and everything is because some of the best tools for introspection and self-discovery have been locked up in the most restrictive drug category on the planet, Schedule 1, for so long. I mean, 40 years, like we've been unable to really study this stuff when it was helping people. It was proving to be beneficial and useful. And so, if you're going to offline the study of one neurotransmitter, serotonin, so okay, this would be a good time to bring up that one photo where it shows LSD next to serotonin, next to psilocybin, and you don't have to be a chemist to see the similarities there. And so because we have a serotonergic system, serotonin, LSD, psilocybin, and most psychedelics, they act upon the 5-HT2A receptor site. So that's how they achieve their effects. But serotonin is very much tied in with perception, learning, memory. And so if you're going to take away, you can't study serotonin analogs, which is basically any psychedelic. We've been unable to study that for so long. So our ability to study consciousness has been hindered dramatically by the Nixon administration, by the Controlled Substances Act of 1970. Because of that, because of Timothy Leary and the overzealous fear reports at the time, we have been at a disadvantage for studying consciousness because the things you need to perturb it they're off the books. We can't study it. Yeah. So, but now that the doors are kind of a little bit open, there's so much research out there, and somebody needed to, comb through it all and see the pattern amidst the noise. And that happened to be my wife and I.
Yeah. How crazy is that Schedule 1, man? No medical benefits, highly addictive. Both of those, absolutely, completely, scientifically false.
Exactly.
Like, insane. Hey everyone, thank you for clicking on the video. If you enjoy, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share with everyone. And if you have time after, please make sure you go to NateNightTalks.com and check out the NNT community and research database. Thank you.